As the primary and really only true starting caliber forward on the Sacramento Kings, there's already a ton of pressure on Keegan Murray. But allow me to add even more pressure because Keegan might be the key to the Sacramento Kings saving their season. I'll explain right here on Locked On Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily Sacramento Kings podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is that time for another episode of Locked On Kings.
Hello and welcome into Locked On Kings, your podcast hub for Sacramento Kings coverage all season long. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off of your first purchase. My name is Matt George. I have the privilege of being your host here. I'm a Sacramento sports anchor and reporter for ABC 10 News. Those of you who have listened to Locked On Kings for a long time, at least over the last 3 or so years, know how big of a fan and believer I am in Keegan Murray. But if you've been consistently listening this year, you know how disappointed I and all of us are in how Keegan Murray is playing. Going to dive head first into some of the numbers behind Keegan Murray's struggles and why it feels like, or it seems like, the Sacramento Kings won't turn their season around until Keegan Murray turns his season around. I think they are directly connected to one another. We'll get into that. You're also going to hear from Keegan Murray. You're going to hear from Mike Brown, and you're going to hear from DeMar DeRozan on today's show, because earlier today, I went to Sacramento Kings practice. Before we dive into the Keegan Murray conversation, I'll share with you just some of my observations from Kings practice today. We walked in right at the very end of practice, and we walked in on some classic shooting competitions that these Kings players have against each other in their respective teams or groups. Then they met in the center of the gym for their kind of end of practice wrap and team talk and come together. And then they split off to do some of their individual work. And the individual work primarily focused on free throw shooting, which is pretty common, and 3-point shooting work. Different guys split up into pairs or groups, and they had to make a certain percentage of 3-point shots from different spots on the floor, right? In both corners, both wings, and straight away, kind of top of the key, 3-pointers. You had to make a certain percentage of those. Once you did, you then ran to the bell that the Sacramento Kings have mounted on their wall in the practice facility. You ring that bell, and that signifies, hey, practice is over for you. Like you made it, you've accomplished it. You can call it a day, basically. And Keegan Murray was one of the last guys on the floor in practice today. Now, there's a positive and a negative to that. The negative is that Keegan was shooting at the basket right in front of us in the media area. His main partner was Doug McDermott. Doug McDermott finished his drill quickly. Keegan Murray did not. Keegan was struggling to hit that percentage required in order to leave the gym, at least from my observation. I could totally be misunderstanding how this drill works and what was going on, but Doug got his shots in, made a certain percentage of them with the coaches there rebounding. He got released, got to ring the bell. That was it. Took Keegan a while longer to ring that bell, and watching him, he was not making nearly as many shots right away as Doug McDermott was. That just speaks to the shooting struggles that Keegan Murray is working his way through. So that's the negative. The positive is Keegan has been very intentional about staying and putting in the work to try and get through this slump, right? After he was done shooting, he went and rang the bell, could have called it a day, went to the other side of the floor, went to the basket, started shooting free throws. I know this and was paying close attention because we were all waiting on Keegan to finish so that we could talk to him. In addition to all of this, the atmosphere inside the practice facility was very upbeat and encouraging. And I don't mean encouraging like what I saw was like, oh my gosh, okay, this team is figuring it out. I'm encouraged by what I saw. I mean, the players and coaches are being very encouraging to each other. Now, before you get frustrated by that, or before you go, what the hell, Matt, what can you be? Why are you happy? Why are you being encouraged? Why is it upbeat when you just lost another game and you're 9-12 to start the season and things aren't going well? Togetherness was the emphasis from this day in practice, at least from what I gathered. And you're going to hear from different from Mike Brown and DeMar and Keegan here in a second, especially DeMar and Brown talking about it. But this team knows they're struggling. right? They know they're not living up to expectations. They know not everybody's carrying their weight. And even though accountability is important and accountability is happening, or at least we're being told that it is happening, these guys are not pointing fingers at one another. There's not being divisions. There's not rifts. There's certainly not this idea, like I've seen in my comment section so many freaking times, that Mike Brown is losing the locker room, or players are turning on Mike Brown, or players are turning on each other, or Malik's getting frustrated because Keegan's not making shots, or whatever. That's not happening. At least there's no reason to believe, based off of what we've seen and me being around the team in whatever limited capacity that I am, there's no reason to believe that that's actually happening. Togetherness is important. This team genuinely, and I believe it's genuinely feels like they're going to work through this, that things are going to turn around for this team. Now, it doesn't mean that they will, and it doesn't mean everything so far in these first 21 games can just be forgiven and thrown into the rug, right? We still have our frustrations that we felt after last night's loss, still have our frustrations felt after the Portland game, right? But I do believe that this team is handling things at least the right way as a unit, as a group, as teammates. But let's dive into these Keegan Murray shooting struggles, right? The numbers, not good for Keegan, and so perplexing. And this is a team-wide issue, but it really hones in and focuses in on Keegan. This is why I'm titling this podcast like Keegan is the guy to save this Kings season, because he's shooting 27% from three-point range, plummeting from the 35% that he was shooting last season, and even further down from 41% that he shot his rookie season. He's averaging 5.6 attempts per game. So rounded up between 5 and 6 3-point attempts per game. Of all of his shot attempts, not his 3-point attempts, of all of his shot attempts, 44% of his overall attempts per game are catch and shoot threes. That number is actually down from years past, which means he's trying to attack the basket more and get more looks from two and taking more shots inside the three-point arc. Also, the fact that I think he's shooting so poorly is encouraging him, or is how he's trying to attack the basket more, because the three-point shot hasn't been falling. But on these catch and shoot threes, which has been the bread and butter for Keegan so far in his career, and it's like the most ideal. It's how when you're practicing in your backyard, or well, maybe not by yourself, but when these players are working with rebounders and working in warmups, like catch and shoot, you're in your spot, you're in your motion, you catch it, you put it up. It's like the most cookie cutter, like basic go-to shot any shooter can take. It's supposed to be the most comfortable shot you can have. Keegan is shooting 28% on catch and shoot threes this season. It's really, really bad. He's 11% of the shots, he's taking one like dribble pull-up three a game, or honestly less than one dribble pull-up three a game, and he's shooting 11% on dribble pull-up threes. So it's not working off the dribble, but he's never taking it off the dribble. Primarily, he's a catch-and-shoot three-point shooter, and it has not been dropping. For context, last season when Keegan shot 35% from the field, or from three-point range, should I say, he shot 37% on catch-and-shoot threes. And then his rookie season, when he shot 41% from three, he was 40% on catch and shoot threes. So these are the shots that he wants. These are the shots that he's getting. These are the shots that he needs to hit. And while the Kings as a whole, as a team, are struggling from three-point range, Keegan is the key to the floodgates opening, right? I'm not saying because Keegan's not shooting well, also Malik Monk has been struggling, or because Keegan's not shooting well, Kevin Huerter's been struggling. All these guys are important, and they're responsible for their own shots and their own shooting percentages. But for a team to struggle as much from three-point range as the Sacramento Kings have, it's almost like you need a catalyst, right? How many times have we seen in games in the past when one guy gets it going, then all of a sudden it's infectious and everybody gets it going? We've seen that happen against the Kings basically every single night. But typically when the Kings are having a good shooting night, they're doing it as a team. Like when one guy is shooting the three-point shot well, a lot of guys also kind of pick up on that energy. It becomes infectious. And I think Keegan needs to be that patient zero to infect the Sacramento Kings three-point shooting again. I think once Keegan's three-point shot, I say once, not if, because I'm trying to be optimistic. Once Keegan's three-point shot starts to drop, I think it opens the floodgates for everybody else. Him hitting more threes, I think alone completely changes the Kings' rhythm. and completely changes the results. Like, this is why I feel Keegan is the key to saving the Kings season. Because if you look at the numbers, while he is not the most important player on the Kings, right? Fox is still the star. Domantas Sabonis still primarily the offense runs through him. DeMar DeRozan is a go-to bucket that the Sacramento Kings lead on heavily. Like, Keegan Murray is not the most important player on the Sacramento Kings. He's certainly not the head of the snake. He's certainly not the leader. But we've seen Fox, DeMar, and Domantas Sabonis, and even Malik Monk to some extent. The top 4 guys, and Keegan is clearly number 5. Those top 4 guys have had positive moments and been really good, and the Sacramento Kings still have primarily lost games. They've lost more than they've won. And those guys, while they could be better on certain nights, for the most part, like look at the other night. The Kings had all 4 of those guys. Like Malik Monk had 19. The other 3 of them were over 20 points per game, right? The Kings lost that game. It's because I feel it's Keegan and everybody else that is struggling to carry their weight. Now, the Kings scored 125 points in that game, and of course, 3-point defense was a big reason why they lost. But how many more wins would the Sacramento Kings have this season if Keegan Murray just shot 35% from 3-point range like he did last season? God, I genuinely feel like, and this could be an over-exaggeration, I feel like the Sacramento Kings would minimum have 3 or 4 more wins and would be a game or 2 above 500 if Keegan was knocking down like 35% of his threes. I genuinely believe that, because if you look at the numbers over the last 3 seasons that Keegan has been here, the Kings have gone as Keegan's shooting numbers have gone. Kings are a phenomenal team, make the playoffs, end the drought, the best version of themselves when Keegan Murray is shooting over 40% from 3-point range. He and Kevin Huerter too, but he is primarily the best 3-point shooter on that Kings team. Last year, Keegan kind of makes a dip in scoring, his scoring went up, kind of makes a dip in 3-point shooting, dropping from 41% down to 35%. And the Sacramento Kings offense kind of takes a dip. Now you look at this season. Offensively, Keegan's really struggling. The Kings are really struggling, but where are the Kings more steady this year than they've been in years past defensively? And Keegan has been the most steady defender, or one of the most steady defenders on this roster. I really believe that if Keegan Murray gets it going, the Sacramento Kings will get going. I genuinely believe that, because Fox, DeRozan, Sabonis, and Monk, all 4 of these guys, we know what they bring. If you can get 2 out of 4 of those guys going on a nightly basis, you should be able to win. 3 or more of those guys going on a nightly basis, you absolutely should be winning, and that hasn't been the case this season. Those guys are important. You know what you're going to get out of those guys. Some combination of those guys are going to play well, because the Kings are top heavy. That's just the way it is. But if Keegan Murray can be that 5th guy, that leader of the role players, and Keegan's too damn good to be a role player, but if he can be right in between that star and role player spot, that's like that Keegan zone, right? If that's what he can be just by knocking down the open shots that the Sacramento Kings are getting him consistently. Keegan is getting wide open looks every single night and just missing them, and he's not the only one. But if he can get that going, if he can get that ball rolling for the Sacramento Kings, I believe the rest of the team would follow suit and the wins will start to pile up. Here is Keegan Murray from the practice facility today after practice, talking about his shooting struggles and his confidence.
From a frustration standpoint, just where are you at right now?
I mean, I'm fine. I feel like I'm in a good space. It's just, obviously, things haven't really gone my way this year, but I feel like a lot of guys on our team are in a good space. So just being able to figure out how to win games is our biggest issue right now.
What do you make of your shooting woes? I mean, we've seen you shoot since you came in the league, and you're a really good shooter, but this season, for whatever reason, they're just not falling.
I mean, I'm not worried about it. I mean, obviously, like I said, it hasn't gone my way, but it's a long season, so I'm just staying confident.
Have you ever been through something like this in your basketball career, a slump that goes this long?
Yeah, I mean, my freshman year in college, I shot like 28%, so I've gone through this before, so it's just being able to continue to stay working at it, and things will eventually even out, so it's whatever.
In those moments where you're not knocking down shots, there's some games where it looks like you lose confidence out there. In those moments, like, is that something you're conscious of? Like, what's going through your mind in those moments?
I wouldn't say lose confidence, but I mean, for me, I feel like if my shot's not flying, I try and figure out how to affect the game in different ways, because there's a lot more to the game than just making shots. So I'm just trying to affect that, and I think if I continue to do that, eventually it'll get me going. So.
Kind of building off of that, I know Mike encourages you, if it's open, take it no matter what, and he'll live with the miss. But also, I know when you're having a shooting slump, you're encouraged to try and get to the basket and change things that way. How do you balance the when to attack, like you attacked Wemby last night, versus when to let it go?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I've done a good job of attacking the rim on occasions this year. So just doing that, I feel like continues to keep my confidence up. So like I said, I'm not worried about myself. I know I can get through this, and yeah. So.
Today's episode of the Locked On Kings podcast is brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. All you do is pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long at PrizePicks. PrizePicks puts their members first. So when you win money on PrizePicks, your withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. That's what so many people are interested in when you talk about these sites and talk about these gaming companies, right? You want to make sure, hey, am I going to put my money into it, make money, and then it's going to take forever to get back to me? That's not the PrizePicks way, and I'm speaking from personal experience, right? Plus, making money on PrizePicks, I won't say it's necessarily easy, but it's fun and it's easy to understand, especially if you're going specifically off of a team you follow, like the Sacramento Kings, for example. You can hopefully take them more on future 3-pointers that Keegan Murray may make in a game. As of right now, that number is really low. It's like 2.5 or 3 3-pointers made in a game. If you take the more on that, eventually, I hope that's going to start cashing in. Or you could stay with the pessimistic side, take the less on that, and I guess make money off of Keegan Murray's struggles. Sign up today and you'll get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even have to win to receive that $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks also offers incredible weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, PrizePicks discounts selected player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineups. PrizePicks will straight up give you wins sometimes, like on a Christmas Day game. LeBron James will score 1.5 points. Well, of course, you take the more on that because he's going to hit that, and you're one step closer to cashing in. Again, download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks. Run your game. And Locked On Kings is also brought to you by Gametime. This is the app that you need to be using to get your tickets from now on. Not just your Sacramento Kings tickets, although I highly recommend you get your tickets to whatever Golden One Center event through Gametime, because not only are the prices better than you'll find anywhere else, and I'm not just saying that, there's a Gametime guarantee that says if you find better prices on the same tickets elsewhere, Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. But the seat views are phenomenal, whether it's a concert or a Kings game. If you know of the Golden One Center, maybe you've never been, you want to try and have an idea of what your view of the court is going to look like. You're not going to get more accurate views than you get on Gametime. The deals are incredible. They're flash deals for last minute tickets. It is nuts. And they're all in pricing feature. It's so simple and yet so effective. People have told me who have used Gametime, this is the best part about it. The thing they like the most is when it shows you your price at the beginning, like when you pick your seats, that's the price you pay, right? It's not, hey, $40 a seat plus an extra $20 a seat worth of fees on that very last checkout screen. Yeah, PrizePicks doesn't do that. The $40 per seat that you see, that is what the price is. No extra fees surprising you and ambushing you at the end. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime. One of the areas of focus that I brought into practice today, and I knew I wanted to ask Mike Brown about, was the difference, the massive difference between growing pains and regression, right? Growing pains signifies that the struggles that the Sacramento Kings are going through, they can learn from them, right? It's like going through the darkness before you get to the light, or whatever like metaphor you want to come up with, right? It's if the Sacramento Kings can take these struggles, take these lessons learned, and turn them into wins in the near future, right? No better time to figure stuff out than early on in the season, so that the remainder of the season, and especially come the end of the season and playoff time, you can be playing your best basketball. As much as I'd like to believe that's what's happening here, and that what's going on for the Sacramento Kings is growing pains, regression is terrifying, because what if this is just who this Kings team is, and unfortunately who they are is just flat out worse. And that's what I think it feels like to a lot of people, and it's easy to feel that way when you look at what's going wrong, and it's not one or two things. There are primary things like Keegan Murray's three-point shooting struggles, the team's three-point shooting struggles, the Sacramento Kings' awful three-point defense, the injuries, whatever the case may be, right? There are a number of different things that are going wrong on a nightly basis. And it doesn't feel like all those things are just going to go away. Maybe the Kings find a way to win in spite of those things and cope better, or not have them kill them as much as we've seen at times over these first 21 games. But it feels like there's more wrong with this team than, oh, they're just figuring stuff out together and they're going to find their way through. I hope I'm wrong with that. But at this point in time, that's kind of how it feels like, right? And just maybe solving one of those things, and I don't know if you can completely solve it, but getting better at one of those things starts to really change this team around, or make things look very, very different. Like we were talking about last segment with Keegan Murray. If Keegan Murray starts hitting shots and gets back to the shooter and scorer that we know Keegan is capable of being, in addition to the great rebounding and defense that we've seen from him this season, does that open the floodgates for Sacramento's offense and suddenly they look like 2022 again? Or if the Kings' three-point defense could just get to middle of the pack, not dreadful, as bad as it is, but let's say they teams are hitting consistently 14 or 15 threes against them instead of 18, 19, 20. Even 14, 15 seems high, but let's say teams are shooting in the low 40s from three-point range or high 30s from three-point range against the Sacramento Kings more regularly than they are in the mid to high 40s and even 50s like we've seen so far this season. Does that all of a sudden result in a bunch of wins for the Sacramento Kings? It truly could be one of these big issues just being managed a little bit better that could change things for the better for Sacramento. And that's where it's more of a growing pain than it is a regression. So I asked both Mike Brown and DeMar DeRozan about this, and both of them gave really, really good answers. Here's Mike's response to my question.
We talked a lot about time isn't always right.
100%.
It's not always straight up. There's a big difference between regression and growing pains. Why do you feel what the team is going through more fits into that growing pains and you'll come out of it better than taking steps backwards?
Man, I believe in the guys in the room. I really do. I think their heart, their brain too, but their heart and their soul is in the right place. I mean, you could feel if guys are just going through the motions and they really don't care. Every single person, man to man down the line, care about what we're doing. And you can feel it. And when you feel that and you feel like you have a good enough group, you know that things going to happen the right way. And it's not just like you said, it's not regression. It's, maybe a step or two, sometimes three backwards. But if we keep pounding the rock, stay with it, stay together, like I was talking about with Jay, we're going to have a chance to get right.
I'm curious what your response is going to be to that, and feel free to share it with me in the comment section if you're watching on YouTube, or at Matt George Sack on Twitter. Email me, mattgeorgesports@gmail.com, because I think some of you are going to take that as like propaganda or coach speak, or trying to like put a, what does it say? Like put a bow on a pig, or trying to like dress something up to make it look better than it is. But I believe this. I believe what Mike Brown is saying, and I understand this because I've seen people say, oh, the Kings don't care. These guys don't care. They don't care that much. They're just collecting paychecks. They don't care about losing. They're laughing it off, blah, blah, blah. I'm telling you, as someone who feet on the ground is around this team, that's not the case at all. These guys genuinely care, and they're very frustrated that they have not lived up to their expectations. So when Mike tells me like he believes it can get done because he sees every day how much these guys care and how hard they're working at it, I believe him. I believe that those comments, I believe that response, and at least me, I was encouraged by those words from Mike Brown today at practice. But here's same question for DeMar DeRozan and DeMar's response.
I mean, because the talent there, it's hard to come across talent, anywhere. We have a great collective talent of guys, and we showed it early on what we capable of doing. But, you don't expect, with new additions, whether if it's myself and a couple other guys being implemented in, me missing games, knock on wood, that I normally don't miss so early. A lot of things could throw off a rhythm, and sometimes when it's steamrolled that way, it could look and feel worse than what it really is. And I think from that standpoint, I know we're going to be all right.
When you've gone through stretches on a team before like this in your career, was it just a gradual get back, or was there like an aha?
Nah, it's a gradual thing. You know, you stay the course, you stay focusing in on what's important, and you take it step by step. You know, you can't really think you're going to hit a home run and feel it right away. You know, you got to do all the necessary things, and, you know, before you know it, you look up, you know, now, you know, you look, you know, everybody's killing like a team like Milwaukee, for example. You know, they had all the talent in the world, and, you know, they just wasn't clicking at that right time. Now look at them. You know, people don't even talk about the first couple of weeks, and, you know, that's what you got to pay attention to. That's what this league is all about, you know, and as long as you stay focused on the goal, you'll be all right.
You're going to hear more from DeMar DeRozan in the next segment, especially talking about like the mental health aspect of going through these struggles and some of the younger guys trying to handle it and keep the right mindset. And DeMar has been such a warrior for mental health and a representative of the importance of mental health and handling mental health in the NBA. And that's a perfect segue to another great sponsor here of Locked On Kings, BetterHelp. Mental health, as DeMar talks about, as you'll hear so many different people talk about today, and it's becoming less and less taboo, and I love that. Mental health is so important, right? The same way you work on your body, the same way you go to the gym to take care of yourself or eat right to take care of yourself physically, you need to take care of yourself mentally. And one of the best ways to do that is to go and see a therapist. Now, I was always kind of spooked by therapists because I had this cartoon image or movie image of I'm laying on a table or laying on a weird looking couch, and I'm talking about my deepest, darkest secrets and concerns and things to someone who's behind a clipboard with their glasses on the end of their nose and is judging me and just nodding and asking, how does that make you feel, right? We've all seen that. We all know those therapy stereotypes. And mainly, I didn't think that my issues were serious enough for therapy, right? Oh, I didn't have a tragedy that I was going with or an addiction or some things that you absolutely, if you're going through this, do need to seek that help. I didn't have any of that, thank God. But that doesn't mean that I wasn't carrying baggage. And my message to you mainly from this is if you don't think that your issues are big enough for therapy, give it a try anyway, because you'll be surprised what you're able to unpack. And more importantly, how seeing a therapist and speaking to somebody helps give you the tools to handle the curveballs that life throws at you on a daily basis. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire and you'll get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. For the comfort that you need to find this December, find it with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. We're going to hear a little bit more from DeMar DeRozan here on how the Kings mentally are handling this start to the season, because, and I think his words that he's going to share are important, and I'm glad we got to talk to him today to kind of get this perspective, because not only is he someone that has dealt with a lot in his life, and if you haven't read his book, highly encourage you to read it, and he's been such a champion for mental health, but it's not easy for players, no matter how much money they're making. There's a tremendous amount of pressure on these players to perform. And this Kings team had such a high expectation for themselves placed upon them by themselves, which so they can't really blame anybody, but also the expectation from the fans, the expectation from the media, the expectations from everybody, right? Everybody, and I can tell you this for a fact, everybody on this Kings team right now is feeling the frustrations of these on-court struggles. They know that they're not reaching their potential. And think about your own life. Apply it to your own life. I know basketball and millions of dollars and stuff like that is different. It's a child's game. But what I mean by that is we understand ourselves better than anybody else understands us, right? We know our potential and what we're capable of better than anyone. And if we don't meet those expectations, nobody is harder on ourselves than we are. Right? That's just a fact. In whatever walk of life, nobody is harder on you than yourself. For the most part. I won't say that that's a blanket statement 100% of the time, but speaking from my own experience, right? When I do a podcast that doesn't live up to the potential, or I do work that doesn't live up to the potential, or as a father, I'm not putting to putting the effort into my kid or whatever, or not making dinner, whatever it is. If I know I have the potential to be better and I don't meet it, I'm harder on myself than anything my wife could say or that you could say or my boss could say or anything like that. Even if they're right and even if it stings what they say, what I'm thinking about myself is the most frustrating part. And I believe with this Kings team that even though Keegan Murray in the soundbite before said he's fine, body language when Keegan Murray is missing shots in games suggests Keegan is frustrated with himself. We've seen with Kevin Huerter, right? We've seen him go through spells where he's missing shots, and you can see on his face, he's like, what the hell is wrong with me? And then he'll hit a shot and go like, finally, thank God. Kevin Huerter is incredibly hard on himself. All these players are. De'Aaron Fox, hard on himself. These guys are ultimate competitors. They've pretty much won their entire lives and worked hard to strive to win their entire lives. I'm not making an excuse for them. What I'm saying is, I think mentally, these guys are harder on themselves than anything that we can be, right? No matter how frustrated we may get and with the things we might say on Twitter or the things I might say on this podcast or whatever. I think these guys are feeling it the most internally, feeling it from themselves. Mike Brown probably feeling it for himself. I'm sure Luke Loucks, who's in charge of the Kings defense, and with how bad the 3-point defense is, you don't think Luke Loucks is sitting at home alone at times or going to bed and thinking, God dang, our defense is a tragedy and I'm the defensive coordinator. I'm the guy in charge. Like, you don't think they're feeling that? So keep that in mind too. Again, it doesn't mean you have to all of a sudden forgive them or feel okay with how they're playing, but understand and believe me when I say these guys care and these guys are feeling it. And here, rather than me keep blabbing about it and taking my word for it, here's DeMar DeRozan talking about the mental side of what this team is going through and overcoming that.
You've talked a lot about the mental side of basketball. Just how much is this just like trying to get young players through the mental side?
Yeah, I mean, that's the toughest part now. It's so easy to see if you play bad, what everybody got to say about it. And I think a lot of people don't put that in consideration in a sense of, everybody kind of, build different, So a lot of times if you're going through something, it could be something outside of basketball that you're dealing with that's affecting basketball, but you're getting talked about what's going on in basketball, that could take a toll. So it's definitely tough in so many different ways. Not saying this is going on with anybody specifically, but, it's just tough at times from the mental standpoint to keep yourself up when you got so many people reaching at you about this person saying this writer said this could happen. Sometimes you just got to find a way just to be, tunnel vision and concentrate and pay attention to what matters. So, I can only imagine how tough it is for, young people now. I remember you used to have to buy the newspaper when I first came in the league. So, yeah. Damn, that sounds old, but yeah, it is.
I really appreciate DeMar's perspective on everything. But look, words are words. And what I know many of you want, what you need is results. You need action, right? And I'm feeling the same thing, right? When the Sacramento Kings take the floor tomorrow night against the Houston Rockets, a team that is notoriously physical, a team that will push the Sacramento Kings around and quite frankly beat the Kings up if the Kings aren't ready to play. We need to see better. The expectations are there for a reason. This team is underperforming. So none of this matters. Like as much as like I'm talking about it and trying to sometimes turn these players into people sometimes. And I think that perspective is important. I'm not bringing this to the table just to say, hey, everything's fine. Don't take it so seriously, because we have a passion for this team, just like these players and these coaches have a passion for the game of basketball, right? So it's not a pass. It's not a get out of jail free card. The Kings still have to perform. They still have to play better. They know it. We know it. And it's about damn time that they figure it out. Again, hopefully this start to the season is growing pains and they can learn these lessons and apply them into actually winning basketball games soon. And while the Kings may have time to figure it out, it's less and less time with every passing game. And with every loss, the Kings fall further and further out of that Western Conference race. And that race is very, very difficult to fight your way back into. So we'll see how the Kings handle it and if they can work their way back in. Again, you want to respond to anything we talked about on the podcast, want to respond to, in my opinion, Keegan Murray being the key to kind of save the Sacramento Kings and reignite this Kings team. You want your thoughts about that, your thoughts about what DeMar said, Mike Brown said, any of that. reach out to me. Let me know. Hit me up at Matt George Sack on Twitter. Email me, mattgeorgesports@gmail.com, or leave your thoughts in the YouTube comment section down below. I'll be at the Golden One Center tomorrow night for Kings and Rockets. God, I need a beam. And hopefully we'll have a positive podcast. But no matter what happens, I'll be there post-game for another episode of Locked On Kings for you. Until then, my name is Matt George. You've been listening to the Locked On Kings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.